All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today, me and Nick will be doing our analysis of the 2023 Alabama quarterback situation. Obviously, Bryce Young departs, and it leaves Alabama with a battle that we haven't seen since probably 2016, where there's a handful of guys gunning for that starting position. Nick, Bryce Young, of course, he's gone. We're going to talk about him real quick. From modern-day California, comes in as the number 2 ranked overall recruit behind Brian Bresee in the class of 2020. Won a national title in his freshman year on the bench. 8,356 yards, 80 touchdowns, 12 picks. The bulk of that came over the last 2 seasons. Won the 2021 Heisman Trophy and a bunch of other awards. 2022 Sugar Bowl MVP in his final career game. He also had a school record 559 yards versus Arkansas in that Heisman-winning season. He owns multiple records, all-time passing yards leader, second in touchdowns. He has numerous single-game records as well for Alabama. Pretty successful tenure for Bryce Young, but one failure is he did not win a national title as a starter. How do you sum up Bryce Young's career at Alabama? The overall was a very successful one, and he's going to be a consensus top 3 pick in this upcoming draft. What are your overall thoughts?
Certainly, Bryce Young's career bears some similarity to Tua Tagovailoa during his time in Tuscaloosa. Of course, two of them both won a national championship early on in their careers. Of course, Tua had a big impact in that game, while Bryce Young's impact in the 2020 national championship was a lot smaller of a role. Then they come in, taking over the reins, have an incredible season in their first year as the full starter, fall short in the national championship game. Then they have their third season on campus, their second season full starter, end up missing the playoffs fully together. Of course, Tua got hurt. Bryce Young didn't get hurt. He did pick up an injury in the Texas game, the Arkansas game, but didn't miss the time like Tua did. But I think the two of them together, when you compare the careers, they're basically the same, except one of them has a Heisman Trophy, the other does not. Bryce Young grabs that Heisman Trophy for him, Sugar Bowl MVP, the school records. He had a lot of expectations when he came on campus. A lot of people thought he could even start over Mac Jones in that 2020 season. Doesn't end up working out that way, and it's honestly worked out for the better because Mac Jones led Alabama to a national championship. But Bryce Young lives up to every expectation that I think I had, and every expectation that most Bama fans had an incredible career. The numbers speak for themselves, 80 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. And just some this past season, some of the plays he made, bailed Alabama out of a lot of games. I said it before on a podcast, Alabama would have been 6-6 without Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Bryce Young played a huge role in saving this team in a lot of the games that were super close. And if it wasn't for him, they would have been totally down the river at LSU and at Tennessee, especially. Tennessee, they could have found themselves blown out in that game without Bryce Young. It's going to be tough to replace a talented quarterback. I wish him the best. I can't wait to see where he ends up in the NFL. I think he's going to be a star at the next level despite the concerns about his size. Great career at Alabama, a legend for Alabama. A player people will never forget, Heisman Trophy winner, and just a great career overall in Tuscaloosa.
8,356 yards, 80 touchdowns. That was both second in school history. One final thing I want to say, Nick, is, do you think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in Alabama history? And what do you think this transition will be like now that he's gone, since, like you said, he's been such a carrying force for this football team over the last 2 years, really?
I think he's the most talented quarterback we've seen in Tuscaloosa in terms of raw talent. I still think the best quarterback in Alabama history is A.J. McCarron due to the back-to-back national championships he won, and he should have won a third one potentially as well. I'll probably rank A.J. McCarron 1, then I'm going to rank Bryce Young number 2, but I think them together up the top, you could honestly flip a coin and decide which one is the best out of those two. Incredible career in Tuscaloosa for Bryce Young.
Looking at QB1 on the depth chart as we head into the spring, Jalen Milroe, the redshirt sophomore, 6'2", 212, 82nd overall quarterback, or prospect rather, number 13 quarterback in the class of 2021. The positives on him, he's a great runner. We've seen it against Arkansas. That game got real close there in that fourth quarter until Milroe's speed helped break the game wide open, and that was pretty much the end of it. And his threat as a runner really opened the door for Jahmyr Gibbs to finish that one off. Exceptional speed, especially in the open field. Great build for him as a quarterback, too, being 6'6", 212. He's a big, muscular guy. Big arm, too. He does need to learn some control. He's a very panicked thrower. Accuracy and confidence with the ball through the air is certainly lacking. This is still a very young quarterback, but this is a guy that did not perform very well, I would say. Remember the Texas A&M game? They were solely in that game because of his mistakes. He wasn't terrible that day. But overall, that was not a very good look for Alabama because they almost lost that game on the final play against the Aggies. And obviously, they ended up at the end of the year. They needed more quality wins. They did not have that many of them. So he did not look exactly great that day. But overall, 31 of 53, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks on the year for Milroe. And, of course, on the ground, he had 265 and a touchdown on 31 attempts. What do you think about Jalen Milroe here? I'm very interested as to why Nick Saban is going to give him the keys to the offense. He does have 2 years in this system. He'll even be getting another one here in 2023. How do you feel about Jalen Milroe? Because I think he's a very talented player, but I don't know if he's the right fit for this system here.
I agree. I don't know if he's the right fit for the system. This is kind of similar to the 2016 quarterback battle we saw at Alabama, which is really the last true quarterback battle that we had. Blake Barnett, Jalen Hurts, Cooper Bateman all kind of battled for the job. Bateman ended up falling way behind. Blake Barnett actually got the start against USC for the first half, ended up getting pulled for Jalen Hurts. And of course, Jalen Hurts took over the reins and is now leading the Eagles to the NFC Championship game and turning out a great career in the NFL. Milroe, very similar to Jalen Hurts in that regard, running first type of quarterback. Great speed, good build, big arm strength. All that I see in Jalen Hurts, I just don't know if Jalen Milroe is the right direction. We saw the mistakes in the limited sample size this past season, Arkansas and Texas A&M. Of course, again, limited sample size, but multiple turnovers in the A&M game, a couple mistakes in the Arkansas game as well. It looked like that could totally slip away from Alabama. Milroe has experience in the system, 2 years. I think he just panics a little bit too much, gets a little happy feet, makes mistakes. I personally don't think Jalen Milroe should start. I think that he right now is in the driver's seat to start. I think, of course, it depends on who the offensive coordinator is. Bill O'Brien will not be returning as offensive coordinator. I'm 99% sure on that. And if he does not, when he does not return as coordinator, we have to figure out who the next coordinator will be. I've thrown out some names on the podcast. Whoever that is that takes over that role will have their choice of quarterback here. I just don't think Jalen Milroe kind of fits this system for Alabama and fits the direction they're going with the future offense.
Now, Milroe did have 80-plus rushing in both A&M and the Arkansas game, but that's not the style they want to roll with. They did that with Jalen Hurts, and I think he's a very good comparison due to his size and the way he wants to attack downhill with his size and his speed. And that certainly worked for Alabama. Jalen Hurts had almost 1,000 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns on the ground, but that passing game was not good at all, Nick. Jalen Hurts' development, it certainly seemed like it was growth a little bit because they really tailored the offense around his ability to run the football back in 2016, of course. And, the passing game was not great, though. They averaged about 200 yards per game. He did not perform very well at all when they lost against Clemson. He was terrible that day. And that wasn't the only time throughout the year that he was bad. I mean, he had a handful of games where the high-end completion percentage due to being protected with the football. But I don't know. I don't think this is something Nick Saban wants to explore yet again. So, how do you kind of view that, my opinion on that?
I agree with your opinion on that. I don't think Nick Saban wants to go back to the sort of running first quarterback. I have no doubt that Jalen Milroe can develop as a passer a little bit more, but I think he's kind of getting close to hitting his ceiling and find himself in a position where running is the sort of requirement here. I just don't think that's an Alabama mindset, right? I think Alabama wants to get a more pocket passer focused quarterback. I think Jalen Milroe just doesn't check the boxes there for me.
Looking at the guy that's going to push him for the starting job, Ty Simpson, redshirt freshman, 6'2", 185. When it came to recruiting for him, he was one of many 5-stars they've accumulated over the years. 26th overall ranked prospect, number 3 quarterback in last year's class. This is a guy that has some great accuracy, some nice strength at every level, good feet, a clean throwing motion. The thing I really like about Ty Simpson is the offense he played in high school was a spread option attack. So, of course, Milroe, he's a big playmaker with his legs, but Simpson has some of those same underrated attributes while also being a heck of a pocket passer. Running that type of offense, again, the spread option allows you to develop good feet, quickness, and football IQ when running the ball. So Milroe, he already has that. Simpson also has that, though, but he adds more prowess as a passer. That those same qualities also translate to being stout in the pocket. I think Simpson's going to be levels above Milroe here. Obviously, he's much younger and doesn't have much experience in the system, so that's certainly something to monitor. But this is a Matt Corral type of player. I think overall he's better than Milroe, a lot more upside. And I think right now, at this moment in time, he's probably a better fit for this offense because, like I said, he can do the same thing Milroe can, but even better.
I agree. I think, Ty Simpson is the starter for me here. I think he has the best upside, the highest potential of anyone on the roster currently. I think you make great points, right? The spread option that he played in high school, very, very tough system to understand. He had great grasp, but you watch the film, very talented pocket passer. Accuracy, strength, the arm motion, fantastic, good feet. I think he has the best potential here in terms of his pure arm strength and game knowledge, high football IQ for him. The highest potential is certainly there. I think, the size, it doesn't really bother me as much as it might bother some people. 185, 6'2", I don't think is that bad of a size for him. I think that's really not that bad at all. I think it's kind of an overstated argument here. I think Ty Simpson has the best potential. We saw some glimpses of him in garbage time earlier this season, played against the FCS opponent. I was there at that game. He played a couple other games here and there. I think Simpson is the guy to go with here. I think he's the most Bama-ready quarterback. He fits the bill the best for me. I love the size. I love the arm strength. I think this makes a whole lot of sense for me.
Simpson was only 4 or 5 on the year, so very limited sample size. And obviously, his overall size, only 185 pounds, that's certainly going to improve as the years go on. So that's obviously a concern now, but long-term, probably not. I think how will he battle pressure being inserted into this system as a young guy? And, his ability to escape, I think, is certainly something that's impressive. But, just typical things you find in young quarterbacks are the negatives here, so I'm not really worried. Highest potential in the group. I think overall he'll be the starter at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year, rather. I want you to talk about two true freshmen coming in, though, Nick. Obviously, these guys probably won't compete for the starting job, bearing something, very unfortunate. Eli Holston, Dylan Longerin. Holston, great size, 6'4", 222. Longerin, 6'2", 215. Eli was the 73rd ranked prospect, 137th overall for Dylan Longerin. The size, velocity, the tight accuracy, and the the short intermediate range for Holston. Great arm strength. He could certainly benefit by a cleaned up release. So I think that's something that's going to be a big focus this offseason for him. In Longerin, he's also a guy who's tough, has a big arm, very clean footwork, nice velocity. Obviously, these guys won't factor much into the equation, I don't believe, this year. But what's the vision here, Nick? Nick Saban adding two true freshman quarterbacks in this recent class that was one of the best in college football history.
I think Holstein's, the guy that has the best potential out of him and Lundgren. I think a lot of people I've talked to who know a lot about high school recruiting say he's very underrated for his class, being the 8th quarterback overall. 6'4", 222, incredible size, bit of a monster with that size, good velocity. Like you said, great accuracy in the smaller range. Could use a little bit of work on his deep ball, but I think in general, this is a very strong quarterback who's going to only develop over time. I don't think you'll see play time this year, but I think he's got the best potential to start in the future. I think Nick Saban's going to avoid going after quarterbacks in the portal because he has solid guys through the pipeline. I think Holstein's just another name in the pipeline that will come up sooner rather than later. And honestly, he has potential to even beat out the two in front of him this year if he has a really strong practice. If he gets on campus, he gets into the game, into that sort of practice mentality, and starts really grinding out there on the workouts. Holstein's a fantastic player, great film out of high school, competed at a high level in high school, has good experience there, and I think he's got a great chance. But Dylan Lundgren as well, obviously Alabama's recruiting players they think have potential to start in the future. 6'2", 215, decent size there as well. Number 12 quarterback, big arm, good footwork. He also has potential to be in the future of this team's program as well as the future of this program. These guys, obviously very talented, coming in for a really talented class, one of the best classes of all time. Nick Saban clearly thinks he has spots for both of them on the roster in the future. Otherwise, he wouldn't have recruited them.
And before we wrap this thing up, I do think Ty Simpson will be the starter, Nick, so I want you to make that prediction. I think you also agree. But overall, what do you think this impact is going to have on the offense this year? Bryce Young departing, because this was not a very stout unit this year. In terms of a yard per game number, running the ball was certainly an issue. Separation and speed from the receivers were lacking. So Bryce Young's ability to make plays and fit the ball into tight windows, regardless of where he's at on the field, in pocket, out of the pocket, running 20 yards back, it doesn't matter. What do you think the impact's going to be? And is Simpson your projected starter also?
I'm going to take Ty Simpson to be the starter. I think he's got the best potential on the roster and the best option for this team. I think it is going to be a long adjustment period for Alabama. I think they're going to struggle in the first few games of the season. Luckily, the front part of the schedule is not too taxing. They host Middle Tennessee, then they host Texas. Obviously, that's a huge game. Definitely gets the benefit of being at home. Then they travel to the University of South Florida and Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. So I think the first 3 games, we're going to see a sloppy quarterback play from whoever the starter is. I think we're going to see a couple of mistakes here as the offense kind of gets back into that rhythm. I think this offense is going to struggle a little bit this year. I think Alabama has potential to struggle on offense just because the weapons are quite not really there. I have to see how these guys develop and practice. For me, Simpson's got to be the starter at this point. I just haven't seen enough from Milroe to make him the starter. But these two are going to battle out, and Nick Saban's going to pick who he thinks is the best quarterback to give him his option. I think the new offensive coordinator will also have a say in it. It depends on who they grab for that position, but I think whoever it is, they will agree with Nick Saban. They're going to pick who they think has the best opportunity to lead this team to a national championship.
Yeah, if Bill O'Brien does in fact depart, I think at this point in time it'd probably do more bad than good. It's the end of January. It's not the worst case scenario, but I certainly think that they're going to be looking to get these guys acclimated as soon as possible. And that's the last thing you want to do is have these young guys deep into the spring trying to learn a new playbook. So that's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, thank you for joining me. Some great insight today here on this Alabama quarterback battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Crimson Tide do in the future.
That's going to be it for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.